Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind, episode 120.
Accepting the status quo and doing the same thing, because it's comfortable, will absolutely lead to your grave.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starter is Wendy Alexandre, owner of The Results Boss. The Results Boss is an innovative coaching and mentoring company for small businesses and entrepreneurs to help them find and connect with their ideal client and push past the fears and limitations holding them back from the success they crave. This is not for the faint of heart. You will be pushed to think bigger, you will be uncomfortable, and you will see results. Wendy Alexandre describes herself as mom of a Brady Bunch, biker at heart, wife of a man with 1,000 voices, and dreamer of all things travel who always seeks the joy in every moment. She is a strong woman and leader in the Treasure Valley community, which is in Boise, Idaho, as a mother of 3 and a stepmom of 3, as well as a passel of others that call her mom, an entrepreneur herself for the last 11 years, and an active participant in the community. She knows what it takes to push past obstacles and be tenacious and get results. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I love women like yourself that, just have that drive and can help inspire the rest of us. So I'm excited to have our conversation and share this with the world. So go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
So just a little bit of background. I was originally born and raised in the South, and then moved up to Idaho in the late 80s, transferred with my father and my family, came up here, and Idaho's definitely home to me. I've been here for the majority of my life. I love having the ability to have 4 seasons. I get to ski in the summer and in the winter, so that's really nice. But I realized really early on that I was not going to be the type of person that was just going to stand back and let things happen to me. I really took charge kind of from the very beginning, and started looking for opportunities to improve myself or improve my family's life through lots of different opportunities. The biggest one that came to me was real estate. Definitely fell in my lap. It wasn't something that I pursued or really, thought this is what I'm going to be when I grow up. But it came to me through kind of a odd chain of events, and I really actually fell in love with the business. I've been in the real estate industry for more than 12 years at this point, and I loved the opportunity in that of serving people. That's really where I started to find that passion. In 2007, about 3 years after I got into the business, I was handed a short sale, and I had no idea what that really was, how that worked, what I needed to do to make that happen. But I dug in my heels and I figured it out. And for the next almost 5 years, I did absolutely nothing but negotiate short sales, taking on anywhere from 45 to 62 at any given time.
Wow.
And I absolutely loved every minute of it. A lot of my colleagues go, "Oh my gosh, you have lost your mind. How could you love that?" It's so frustrating, but I really did. That experience is really what led me to where I am today. Once the downturn of the real estate market was gone and short sales were pretty much a thing of the past, I kind of went through a grieving period trying to figure out where I belonged. Going back to traditional real estate was not an option, just in the sense that it wasn't feeding my soul. So I started actually helping other agents figure out their real estate business, new people coming into the business. and continued on in doing what I was doing, had an administrative assistance business for a while, just trying to touch on all of those things. And then in my soul searching, I joined a multi-level marketing company. After 6 months in that business and doing my real estate coaching, I realized that wasn't it either, but that I loved to help people. I love to help my downline, figure out where their difficulties were, get them past that, really move past that emotional luggage so that they could be successful. And someone had finally come to me and said, this coaching thing, you're really good at that. People would pay you. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. So that's really kind of what led me to put together the Results Boss and really start helping people do things that I've done the hard way, give them tools and other things to help them move forward.
Well, and what was it with the short sales that you found so exciting? I mean, were you working, when you said you worked to negotiate what did that look like?
So I would negotiate the contract, obviously, between the buyer and the seller, and then also explain to the seller and work with them very, very closely to gather all of the required documentation that the banks required in order to review their case, to determine eligibility for the short sale, and then negotiate the little pieces, to make that contract acceptable by the bank so that they would take the loss and remove the lien from that sale so that we could go ahead and sell the property.
Wow. So kind of doing the impossible.
Exactly. My favorite one, in all honesty, was a $62,000 house. We had 7 liens we had to negotiate off of that.
Wow.
And that was way more of value to me. I was so much more proud of that one than any, $1 million deal I had ever done.
Wow. You just found like being part of that, doing some of those really difficult things was the challenge for you then, not just the typical real estate stuff. So.
Right. And being able to say, to look at my clients and say, I know that this has been a really rough time, but you're going to be okay. And here's the steps that we can take to move forward past this so that in 2 years or 5 years down the road, you can own another home. You can, do all the things that you still dream of, that this isn't the end of the world.
Wow. So you did like almost some personal coaching for them too.
And marriage counseling. And
I would imagine
in that process.
That's great. So tell us a little bit more about like the inspiration and mission behind the Results Boss. I mean, you talked about being a very service-oriented person. Tell us kind of what's driving that and how you set that business up.
It really has been based on being able to help others see things that they can't see for themselves. I was stuck for a long time, actually went through 9 of my own coaches trying to figure out my purpose, quote unquote. I really was determined that there was some one thing that I was destined to do in this world. And I think through that experience, you figure out that that's not really the case at all. But I really needed to figure out what truly was going to feed my soul. I mean, after doing, serving others in the real estate capacity for so long, it was a really difficult transition to find out what else that was, or what it was about what I did that made me feel like I had purpose. So moving into coaching and being able to, to give people a tool that they've never seen before that can increase their productivity, or being able to say, how about we look at this from a different perspective? Let's look at things in a new way, and watch the light bulb come on is just so powerful for me.
Wow. Well, and tell us some of the challenges that you had along the way. I mean, you talked about trying to find that, what your mission basically was in life. What were some challenges you had along the way? And then what did you learn from those?
Sure. So a huge part of my growing experience was a challenge that I took on personally. And I had read the quote, and I had probably read it a dozen times before, but this particular day I read the quote, do something every day that scares you. And for whatever reason, that day, it really resonated with me. And I took it as a personal challenge. And ever since that day, I have really made it a strong effort to literally do something every day that scares me. Sometimes that's a big thing, like hiking a 2-mile, mountain by myself, or joining a roller derby team, or joining a dance group, or, a lot of different things. And some of it has been having some hard conversations with people that really needed to be had so that I could move on. But that journey alone has completely changed, I think, who I am as a person, how I interact with other people. And it's really changed the ability for me to be able to coach others. As I've gone through those experiences and figured out how to conquer my own fears, then I can share that with all of my clients and help them go through that same metamorphosis, you could say.
Wow. So sometimes, what I'm getting from this, and definitely chime in, but sometimes we get kind of comfortable and complacent in what we're doing, right? And then
agreed.
And then one thing I thought was interesting, I just listened to a different podcast about how sometimes those feelings that we have, like if we were trying to avoid anger, we don't like that those negative emotions, maybe anxiety or something like that, we steer away from those negative emotions. How do you think that plays a part in somebody's success? That's kind of what I'm getting from what you're saying, is that, when we do something that we find difficult and we face it, how does that help us in our success?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I firmly believe, that accepting the status quo and doing the same thing, because it's comfortable, will absolutely lead to your grave. It's just a horrible way to live your life.
Very boring.
Yeah, it just is so sad to see someone doing that same thing over and over again. So, I learn, or I try to teach people how to look at those challenges that are in front of them and really take a hard eye and face it head on, whether that is, if you don't want to get angry, or if you don't want to get angry, I am probably going to sit you down and we're gonna have a conversation in which I'm going to make you angry, which is actually so much fun. Because once I get them to that point and they're feeling those feelings and they're in that moment, and the ability to show them how they can de-escalate themselves so that they control it and it doesn't control them, it's mind-blowing for people. They don't know that they have the control all within themselves just because they've never been given the tools.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. I love that idea of of what we've kind of just discussed about, when we learn how to deal with our, whatever negative emotion that we're trying to avoid, we do become very powerful and commanding in that. That's so inspiring. So tell us, how do you think your paradigms changed over time and with experience of running this business of Results Boss?
I think the biggest thing is I am no longer afraid of anything. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't get those butterflies in my tummy, or that I don't get the cold sweats or the hair standing up on the back of my neck. I get all of those things if I'm doing something new. But I have a completely different perspective. I don't believe that in my heart anymore, that is fear. I just believe that that's excitement. It's something new. I get to try something else and see what happens. Whether that's a new food or a new activity, or or talking to someone that I've never met before. All of those things can be terrifying to other people, but if you approach it from a new perspective of this is an exciting new opportunity, then everything else changes.
Wow. Well, and with some of your clients and stuff, I just wonder if maybe it makes their life much more rich, much more willing. Just exciting to be alive. Like we said, sometimes we just become so apathetic and complacent in our lives.
Oh, absolutely. I have one client in particular that really was like, well, I'm good at this and this is okay. And I think I'll just do this a little bit part-time. And we hadn't even been through our first month of coaching. And she says, you know what? You have me dreaming big. I am going gold for this. I am doing it all the way. And within 1 year, I plan to be doing this full time. And it just like the fears that she was capable, of her dreams, it just totally vanished. She just knew she could achieve whatever she wanted.
That is awesome. Well, and so tell us a little bit more about the services that you offer and then some successes that you've seen.
You bet. So as a business coach, I find I spend a lot of my time helping people really just get out of their own way. I do that through giving them practical tools, to possibly to either automate a manual process or just outline a training module so that they only have to speak that once, and then they can disseminate that out to multiple employees that need that same training. I also show them techniques, of course, to help them and their staff be more productive. Or if, we're looking at a fear type situation, I help them walk through whatever that fear is, to identify how those, how not only is the physical body reacting, but what is going on in your mind and what are the tools that you can use to combat that so it doesn't stay scary, that it becomes something that you can negotiate your way through. And those are probably the biggest things. I find that a lot of the coaching that I do is really about fear, whether that's, in your business or in your personal life or, in weight loss or quitting smoking or a dozen things. Almost always the change hesitation is rooted in fear. And if you can get down to that, then it can make all of the difference.
Wow.
So one of my clients, she had a very outgoing personality. She was aggressive. She didn't take excuses type of personality. And she had an idea behind wanting to start this new business. So she had been a nurse for years and years and had been traveling, doing some training on medical software and stuff that she had gained expertise in. And she really wanted to settle down and be at home, do something that so she could work at home. Her boys are 5 and 8, and really need her there.
Yeah.
And not to be traveling so much. But, with her aggressive, no baloney type of an attitude, then when she told me what her business name idea was, it was Inner Peace Nutrition. And I just sat there and looked at her for a minute, and she said, "Do you hate it?" And I said, "No, I love it, but it's not for you." I said, "Tell me a little bit about you." So we kind of started talking. I said, "I want to know about your personality. How do you react to things? How do you raise your kids?" We just kind of started drawing some things out of her. And I said, now, with all the things that you're telling me, I said, does that say inner peace to you? And she kind of laughed and she said, "No, that's not me at all." And I said, okay. I said, so let's take some of those words that you use to describe yourself and actually see what we can come up with that does make more sense, that's going to attract the kind of client that you are going to identify with. And went through that process, and she was just thrilled. She's like, "Oh my gosh, it feels possible now because that's me."
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of funny because sometimes we do that. We label ourselves or, trying to do a business model maybe that we think will attract more people. But really, we're going to attract the type of person that's going to basically like us, or feed off of our personality. Isn't that?
Exactly.
Do you have any other stories that you'd like to tell us about that?
Really the biggest thing, she's continued to progress and has, she sent me her lineup of products, that she planned to offer as well and had me give her some feedback. And she had basically just done here's my menu of services and here's how much they cost. And I was like, well, that's definitely forward. I said, but what are you providing of value? Is there anything here that describes to anyone that's looking at this what they're getting? What are you going to do for the client? Because they don't care how awesome you are. They want to know what you can do to change their life, to help them. So we did some rewording and worked through some things and packaged some products together that made sense, that people were already buying from her together, and really, really kind of just switched things around, but none of the products changed. And she ended up being able, with the value that she showed, to double her prices. And within 2 minutes of her launching the new product, she got 2 new clients.
Wow.
It was very exciting for her.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, sometimes we can't see, being a great mentor like that gives you an opportunity to see things that maybe somebody else, might not see.
Right, especially when you're in the smog of it. You feel like it's all you do and all you see. So getting a fresh eye on some of that stuff is definitely helpful.
That's awesome.
Before we go on, let us take a minute and hear about our sponsors.
Hey Firestarters, are you looking for a new way to listen to the Luminous Mind? Try listening on Stitcher. Haven't heard of Stitcher? Think of it as radio on demand. You can listen to the Luminous Mind anytime, anywhere. There is no downloading, no syncing, no wasted memory. Just stream your favorite podcasts such as the Luminous Mind. Stitcher is available on iOS, Android, Nook, iPad, and also from your favorite internet browser. Don't have Stitcher? Download it free today at Stitcher.com or in the App Store. And make sure you rate and review the Luminous Mind so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.
Welcome back to the Luminous Mind with the Results Boss, Wendy Alexandre. So tell me a little bit more about your mentoring experience, mentors that maybe you had along the way that made a significant difference in your life, or what you've learned from mentoring other people.
You bet. So I would say that probably the biggest impact that I've had made on my life actually was from a school teacher. When I was in high school, I'm definitely a very stubborn type, and I like to do things the way that makes sense to me. And I also, because of that, I tend to make a lot more mistakes than most people, because I need to try it all. But one of the biggest mistakes, or perceived mistakes, I guess, in my life was that I got pregnant while I was still in high school at a really early age. And one of the teachers in my school, when they found out, said to me, "That's just too bad, because now you'll never make anything of yourself."
Oh.
And while that sounds like a horrible thing to say, in retrospect, there's never been a more powerful statement in my life ever. That can have the tendency to knock people down, but what it did for me is say, this is it. You have to prove her wrong. You absolutely have to do something different to make a difference and make something of yourself. So that day, literally that afternoon, I went ahead and quit high school. I drove to the local college and I got my GED and enrolled in college, all in the next 24 hours.
Wow.
So from that moment on, I really have never let my foot off the gas pedal. I may have switched gears and turned corners and gone different directions, but I've always been very driven to make sure that statement about me was never true.
Wow. Well, and how powerful. It just kind of reminds me of comments or, our conversation of earlier things of taking some negative emotion and doing something very positive with it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. That's great. And do you have any experiences maybe with people that you've mentored and what you've learned from other people?
Yeah, I would say probably the biggest lesson for me in mentoring other people because I'm very stubborn and I like to do things my way. The biggest thing that I've honestly learned is patience. Patience to be able to help others see their own journey. To constantly remind myself, you accomplished it this way, but that's not their way. And so to be able to, like every client is a new learning experience for me, to really be able to watch them grow and see how they think and analyze the different personalities. And a healer is going to be to approach things and deal with things a whole lot differently than a closer type of a personality would. So it's interesting, but I can usually see what's coming before they can. And it's like handing them the present and watching them unwrap it, like on Christmas morning with your kids. It's just like, I know what's coming and it's going to be so good. I can hardly wait for them to open that up. So it's been an amazing, amazing opportunity.
Wow. And patience for a highly driven person like yourself. I mean, I struggle with patience. So that would be a difficult thing for me. But really, it does take some time sometimes to just kind of sit back and just let things happen, right? And
absolutely.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit more about some other personal habits that maybe you have that you find helpful.
You bet. So every morning and this hasn't necessarily gone on for a whole long time, about actually it's just a little over a year now, as I'm looking back at the calendar. But I started, when I started working more from home than going into an office, I started packing my family's lunch every morning. And I know lots of moms and lots of wives do that. And that's nothing super special. But for our family, it became this big ritual that we really love every day. While I'm, the one that's packing the lunches and stuff, I started included little notes, for my husband. If I knew he was discouraged about something, then I would do a little motivational theme, or if he had a big presentation, I'd do something that says, "You got this," or sometimes it was just a little love note. And for my daughter, I did the same thing based on whatever she was going through or we were as a family. And that alone has literally changed our entire family dynamics and the way that I start my day. It's a very uplifting thing to do first thing in the morning. I actually don't drink coffee anymore because it's such an energizing experience. And my husband has now started posting those on his Facebook page, and he's got this little following. And if he doesn't post one on a weekday, people are like, "Where are the lunchbox wisdoms? We need life." So it's become this thing that's much bigger than any of us. But we just love it. Yeah, it's just a huge part of how we get our day started.
Wow.
Now.
Talk about changing that family culture too. I'm sure there's more feelings of love and support for each other.
You bet.
That's awesome. So tell me about any books that you've read that you might find influential.
Oh gosh, the number one book that I read, it was given to me right when I was starting college. Or right after college. I can't remember, sometime in there. It's got so many dog-eared pages and notes in it now. I can't remember when I started. But it's called Shut Up, Stop Whining, and Get a Life.
Oh, wow.
And it's by Larry Winget. And it really shaped a lot of how I am today. And it sounds really harsh, but the whole essence of the book is about taking personal responsibility. If you say you're going to do something, do it. There's no one's going to earn a living for you. This is your responsibility. So it really kind of changed my whole mindset of, the potential victim mentality that I could have had, being a young mom and high school and everything being so hard. It really changed my whole mindset to, if I want this to be different, then I've got to get out there and do something about it. And that by far is the most powerful book that has ever impacted me. A couple of the other ones that I just love. You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. I love that book. And it's definitely made a wave. Lots of people love that book. And then a newer one that I just recently have read is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And it really shifted some paradigm thinking for me as far as, especially my money mindset, and really trying to, say this coaching. This is not something that I follow a manual on. You can't, there is no manual to life that I can share with other people. It's about listening. It's about, creating an environment where they are comfortable. And it's almost like an art form. And so that book has really kind of inspired me to look at it as more of my art, and being able to relax into that and really listen to my intuition and be present in the moment with my clients.
Wow. I love those titles. It really brings out that, I said you're a biker at heart. That's what it reminds me of. But yeah, I love the positive spin that you're putting on everything. And I think that's, it goes back to that abundance mindset versus, I think so many of us have the scarcity idea, that there's not enough of this or that. But when we have this abundance mentality of there's enough, and you just have to work for it, doesn't that change people's thinking and their paradigm of what they're thinking?
Yeah, it's it really changes everything. And some people, get all in the, I think some of the positive thinking stuff, people go, oh, I can't hear any more of that, because of all of the media attached to some of that. But it really is about changing how you think about things. If you wake up every morning and say, good God, it's morning, and you complain all the way to the bathroom, well, that's a really horrible way to start your day. But if you wake up and you stretch and you start thinking about all of the things that you have going for you, you have, air you can breathe and a home to sleep in that's warm. If you start the day off thinking that and say, good God, thank you for my morning, it really changes everything. It sounds so simple. But it works.
Yeah, taking that moment of gratitude, maybe and kind of going back with those negative emotions again. I mean, I think people are tired of the positive thinking attitude because, when we do have a negative thought, sometimes, we get down on ourselves about, well, I should be thinking positively. But I love how you've taken your business and you're helping them find those negative emotions, that we tackle, that we have inside of us, and really, facing it,
sure.
not just ignoring it, that it's there. So
yeah, every one of us has triggers that really set us off into that downward spiral that we've all dealt with. I still have my days where the spiral gets a little out of control and I have to rein it back in. But if you can learn to really identify those ones, especially the ones that come up day after day after day after day, and just really, do a paradigm shift in your thinking, then there will be a whole lot less of those downward spiral days.
Definitely. I love it. All right. Could you go ahead and tell us maybe some of your long-term goals, and then what kind of legacy that you hope you're going to leave?
Yeah, I think my biggest goal, a couple of things. I really want to be of service. I've definitely identified service is my number one value word. It's what I surround everything else in my life. If I'm looking at the spokes on a wheel, and I say, here's my family spoke, and here is my business spoke, and here is my community spoke, and here's my church spoke, all of those different spokes, I have to be able to look at each one of those and say, am I being of service here? Am I being of service there? If I can say that to all spokes of my wheel, that's a good day.
Yeah.
Most of them aren't 100%. There's usually something that got left behind one day or another. But if I can end the day and say, was I of service in one spoke, then it was a great day. It was a really great day. That's really my ultimate goal. in life. I had my dear, sweet sister-in-law, Paula. She just passed away last week, and we attended her funeral just yesterday, and it was such a powerful moment because every single person who spoke of her talked of her innate ability to be of service to so many people. She was a wonderful mother and a teacher, and she took care of her disabled sister when her mother grew too old. Rather than put her in a nursing home, even though she was already battling cancer, she brought her into her home to care for her. So I think that those strong people in my life that I have really bonded with and have had relationships with that are of service, if people say the things about me at my last day that they said of her, then it doesn't matter how much money I had or how successful my business was. I just want to know that I've been of service to others.
I love that. Before we say goodbye, do you have any final parting words of advice for our listeners? And then give us some contact information of how we can get in touch with you.
Sure, absolutely. So, I think to wrap things up, the biggest thing is that no one that's successful has done it alone. We all have other people in our lives, whether those are our parents or friends or children or spouses or coaches. No one has taken their journey and been successful alone. Everyone needs encouragement. They need someone to brainstorm with or bounce ideas off of. Someone to really encourage them on the bad days and celebrate on the good days. It really does take a village, to bring one thing to success. You hear every sports figure that's been successful has a coach. Every big business person at one point or another had some coaching along the way. And that's really my objective, is to make sure that anyone who's in that spot who is stuck because of a fear, or they just don't have the tools, or they've never scaled a business before, that they have a place that they can go to obtain those resources so that they can be as successful as possible.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, that's one thing I'm learning along the way is that, they have studies like, the 10 top people that you hang around with is where your success ladder is. So if you're hanging around, people who aren't very successful, who talk negatively, you end up being like that. So that's why having a mentor in a village, like you said, of putting yourself in those relationships and those positions is so powerful for somebody.
Absolutely. I know from my own personal experience, had I not made the intention, I know that was a very deliberate decision that I made probably 4 or 5 years ago to remove toxic people from my life. And that was such a hard journey to go through. But in changing those relationships and only accepting the ones that made me a better person or that I could learn from has definitely made all of the difference.
Yeah, and you don't serve somebody, going back to trying to be a service of listening to them complain,
Exactly.
So that's great. And give us your contact information, how we can get in touch with you.
So my website is www.resultsboss.com. You're welcome to email me, which is Wendy, Wendy, @resultsboss.com. And you can always reach me by phone. I'll typically get a message and return those a couple of times a day at 208-412-2109.
Great. Well, I have really fed off your energy and your excitement, and I really appreciate you taking the time to have a discussion with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm so excited.
Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. To learn more about Wendy, go to our show notes at theluminousmind.net. Be sure to become a subscriber to our free email list and consider joining our program by going to the scheduling tab to become a fire starter today. Help support the podcast by making all your Amazon purchases through the free Amazon widget on our website. Also, sign up to receive 2 free audiobooks from Audible at theluminousmind.net.
Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Google+, and now Pinterest. Get our audio content by subscribing on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. To help us grow, consider telling your friends about us. Leave us a review. Tell us how we can help you so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.